First of all, I just want to say thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be here today. When I came to work at NASA about 8 years ago, this is the reason I came to work here. I came to learn from the people that did it best, the world experts, and this room is filled with the best that NASA has. So I'm really honored to be here. I'm here by chance because somebody else, one of my peers, is unable to attend, and I had the opportunity, and I've known for a while, to come here and talk today. So I've known about this for a long time now. Unfortunately, I didn't really start making this presentation until last night. And I'm an engineer, and I'm an artist, and I'm a project manager, but the thing that I'm not is an English major. And I dated one in college, but it did not rub off. So if you see a typo, I really, really apologize. I get creamed all the time online about typos, but I'm not a speller, so let me know afterwards. I'd be glad to update the charts. I'm here today to talk about a buzzword called participatory exploration. And I kind of want to talk just from the basic premise of what participatory exploration is defined from those that kind of came up with the buzzword and what they tried to encompass. And then I want to kind of shift our thinking on participatory exploration because I think that maybe it's misdefined. And then I want to talk to everyone about maybe what we can do in our daily work about participatory exploration. I have some notes here too, so I'm going to probably go from my notes because I really thought a lot about this presentation. I want to get it right. So what I'm going to cover today, just kind of, again, the definition of participatory exploration, but then I'm going to talk about it in terms of a user contribution system. And I'm actually in business school right now, so I like to use even bigger buzzwords than participatory exploration. But this is actually a really big thing right now, and I actually have this month's October 2008 Harvard Business Review. I don't know if you guys read this or not, but they have a really, really, really great article on user contribution systems, and a lot of the stuff that I have in this presentation is just more eloquently put in this article. So if you leave here today confused, being like, what the heck did Nick say? Just go buy Harvard Business Review. It's kind of spendy, like 20 bucks or something, but it'll say it a lot better than I'll say it. And just kind of a little bit of background about me, because my boss once said, so what qualifies you to talk about all this stuff? And he probably has a good point. So I want to kind of give you an idea of where I came from. I'm a mechanical engineer and probably not the best engineer in the world. I'll admit it. I just details, I'm more of a project manager than a detailed person. So I'm kind of a bigger picture person, and I recognized that early on. So I actually went into mission operations and helped train astronauts as a co-op and design spacesuits. Then after Columbia, I went to the International Space University, which is one of the greatest experiments in human psychology ever. You put 26 people from 26 different countries in one room, give them a project and expect a result. I don't know if the result turned out that well, but I sure learned a lot about my peers and about alternative perspectives. And so after that, I came back I worked at Johnson Space Center and worked in MOD for a little bit longer. And now I work in Space Life Sciences under the Human Research Program, which a lot of people have talked about that today. I work on the EVA Physiology Systems and Performance Project. It's the longest acronym. Explaining to people outside of NASA what I do is very complicated because I have to explain EVA and then what physiology is and what we mean by systems and what we mean by performance. But essentially all that lunar rover, suit port, moon suits, that's kind of what we're looking at from the human element research perspective. When I was in college, I was really excited about NASA. I worked at General Motors for a summer because I wanted to drive race cars and I wanted to be an astronaut. Those are the two things I've always wanted to do and I still want to do. And then I got a co-op at NASA and I came to NASA and so I went back that first semester after my co-op and I talked to everybody about what I did because it was a requirement, first of all, but B, I was really excited and passionate about it and everybody was fired up and they all wanted to be involved and I wish I could hook them up with jobs, but I was never able to. So I wonder, out of those 50 people I graduated with, half of them are really excited about space. Where did they go? What are they doing now? Well, I know one of them's at GE, one of them's in the United Nations. They have a lot of influence, and they are interested in space. Then I went to the International Space University, a place that studies space. Now, I don't know how many people actually got space jobs out of that, but there's a lot of people very interested in space who, one of them's a Scottish friend who's working on oil rigs out in Saudi Arabia. And he's really excited about space. So what's he learning out there that he can maybe contribute to the space program? So we're going to talk about that today. That's what participatory exploration is. So oh my God, what's going on here? There's a lot of computers. This is called a LAN party. Has anyone ever been to a LAN party before? All right. They have, if you're from San Francisco, you may be involved in some of this, but the point is there's a lot of people sitting behind their computers right now working on things. And actually I saw some business review article just today online about what are all those people that just got laid off on Wall Street doing now? Maybe they're working on open source, which is actually a really honest, true thing. They are. A lot of them are sitting at their computers thinking, they were engineers and then they went to Harvard Business School. Now they're unemployed. They're entrepreneurial. What are they doing? And they have all this creative energy and talent. How do we harness that? So also the inspiration for this, you guys have kids probably. Does anyone have any kids in high school? All right. Do they watch The Hills on MTV? Does anyone know what that is? I am fascinated by that show, not because of the really cheesy drama, but because they have little bubble pop-ups of people's comments that you can go on the back channel online and you can tag and they make a competition out of this. So MTV gets the credit or gets the benefit of all these people tagging really interesting comments, and then they show up online, and the people, if they show up online, get prizes and bonuses, and it's really, really fascinating. So throughout this presentation, you'll see little tags I put in the presentation. I'm not necessarily going to talk about, but they're there to kind of get you thinking about what I'm talking about. So recently, and even today, I heard it this morning, there's a lot of talk about participation, about collaboration, about innovation, and about exploration. And there's really good reason for that. And Noel mentioned I became famous on NASA Watch, which I'm telling you, if you have a chance not to do that, I would suggest not doing that. It's like you throw yourself out there and everyone throws arrows at you. It's quite fun, except for it gets you kind of depressed after a little bit because a lot of people are really negative out there. And really what we're trying to do with some of this generational stuff is say, hey, look, there's been a shift in how people think and about how people interact and how people utilize tools and what that means for the aerospace industry and for how we do business today. And so if you saw any of those, that was the point, and I apologize if you missed it. So again, the point is there has been a shift. And have you guys seen the video called Web 2.0, or I mean Shift 2.0 on YouTube? Everybody write it down right now. Shift 2.0. Look it up on YouTube and go watch it tonight. I'd show it here, but it's probably like 15 minutes long. It is a fascinating video. It was actually developed out of a high school class, and the whole point is the United States is falling behind in education. That's become a pretty big topic recently, but they were kind of on the forefront of that. And they have all these really interesting topics and stats about how the world's changing around us, and it's true. There has been a shift. Just recently, if you just use the internet and what goes on online, there's a shift between passive and active. And I would argue that there's a huge trend online to become more active, more participatory. You see a lot of the platforms that actually survived for more than 1 or 2 years, like Facebook, probably because it opened up its infrastructure and its architecture and allowed people to create widgets and to go online and to be active. Flickr is the popular photo sharing site, and that's popular because it's really easy to use. They've lowered the barrier to share photos online. I think about YouTube. I haven't been out of college that long, but when I was in college, people were telling me it's impossible for us to ever share videos online. The bandwidth just isn't good enough. Our computers will never be able to handle it. YouTube, I can't remember how many millions of videos there are on YouTube now. It's fascinating to see. And YouTube and Google are taking total advantage of understanding how people interact online and their movements, and they're making business cases out of that. And so what I'm going to do today is talk about a few business cases that I've seen that use participation and the infrastructures and the platforms they built, not as a necessarily say, look, we need to become Google at NASA, but to kind of just get you thinking about in your daily jobs, how can you use some of this to maybe open up, to leverage the limited resources that you have and open up what you're doing. So, like I was saying, social networks are no longer the product. They're the feature now. Social networks are kind of expected. If you have a website online, NASA gets a lot of complaints because we do not have a social network online. if you talk to most young, well, maybe not most, but a lot of younger employees at NASA, the one thing, if you ask them, what could we do to make the NASA.gov website better, they would tell you in half a second, make it a social network of some sort. Put a Wikipedia on there, allow people to share knowledge, to transfer knowledge, to share lessons learned. I mean, think about how many people, I think I counted 65 people in here, at least before break. 65 people, so take me out, 64 people who know a lot more than I do about space exploration. There's no way I have time in the day to talk to all of you. I would love to, because you guys are all brilliant. And if I could somehow download the information that you have and really categorize that. I can't do it by myself, we can't do it, but if we opened up that knowledge to the world, there's a lot of people out there that would be able and willing to, as a part of their daily habits, categorize the information and really, the cream of the crop rises to the top. So large companies are beginning to leverage this technology and behavioral shift in the workplace by creating new ways for people to volunteer their time, energy, and expertise to help accomplish their mission. For example, Procter & Gamble. Has anyone been to the Procter & Gamble website recently? It's really interesting. They have this thing called Connect and Develop, and Procter & Gamble it's a company known for being innovative. And just recently, they kind of shifted their mindset, and they said, how do we continue to be innovative? Because, it's all about customer value, and it's all about raising the stock price of our company. So how do we continue to do that? And what they said was, well, we don't have all the answers. I mean, we're pretty smart. We have a lot of money and cash flow to hire some of the world's most brilliant thinkers, Nobel Prize winners, but we still don't know it all. And our consumers and our customers and our stakeholders maybe do. And so they've really tried to incentivize this, and they have this thing called Connect and Develop. It allows people to give some input into what they're doing. And I can't remember if Procter & Gamble is the company that does this or not. I'm pretty sure they incentivize somehow. I can't remember how they do it. But I was actually talking to someone from Texas Instruments just the past week. Texas Instruments does this kind of internally. And they say, we realize that we need to have innovation breakthroughs. We can't do the great 70-20-10 time like Google does. So let's just incentivize our employees. So we won't just give you the patent. We will give you a percentage of the revenues we make from your product. And it's really just spurred innovation at TI. Another example is Dell IdeaStorm. And I was going to talk about Dell, but then somebody wanted me to talk about Starbucks instead because they really like Starbucks. So the point is they're both run on the same platform. It's called Salesforce.com. Now, personally, I'm not an advocate of Salesforce.com. I've tried to use it. It's complicated as all get out. I don't like it at all, but it's intriguing what they've done. Dell, for example, has this web page. It's called Dell IdeaStorm. They just redesigned it. It looks a lot better. And you can go to this website and you can say, you know what, I just bought an Apple. I would have bought a Dell if, they had the pull-away magnetic power cable, or if they had the backlit keys. And so Dell has just kind of taken advantage of their customers and said, what do you want to see in the next Dell computer so that we stay competitive and we keep selling computers? And to Dell's credit, they've taken some of the suggestions. They haven't taken all of them, but they have a page dedicated to the ones that they've actually implemented in their computers so that people can see the feedback. And you can also see people can vote up and down like dig.com, and they can choose which ideas are better. And it's the whole idea of crowdsourcing so that limited resources are put up on the front end from the company, and they can take advantage of all these people thinking about their product all day long. These people spend their days in canning factories or making twist ties for 8 hours a day on a factory line. And they're not dumb. They're just in a different situation than we are. And they may have had an aerospace engineering degree and just for unfortunate circumstances got stuck in the middle of Indiana, where I went to school. And I don't advocate getting stuck in the middle of Indiana. But if you do, and you have a lot of time to think, what could you come up with? And so Dell takes advantage of this. Starbucks does the same thing, and they've offered some products online in the same sort of platform. We've actually played around with this, but we kind of went away from it. But I know the IPP office has kind of looked at using Salesforce.com before. Harvard Business School. I'm fascinated with Harvard Business Review because it's really good, and they have a lot of really good ideas. And then I think about Harvard Business School and how they teach their students. It's all participatory exploration. The professors, I mean, I personally think the professors at Harvard have a pretty easy job. They stand up there and they facilitate a discussion, and they let the students in that are brilliant. So the discussion's fascinating, and they reward based on the preparation you do ahead of time. And so it's not the professor standing up there. It's not the one-way communication anymore. It's a two-way communication. It's really, really interesting. I actually saw one of the things I'm going to talk about later is Innocentive and Threadless.com, and that was actually a Harvard Business Review case study that the Space Life Sciences organization at JSC, that we had them come in and they held a case study with all of our scientists and engineers in Space Life Sciences. And now I work in the science community, and I'm an engineer, so I feel like I'm kind of an outsider working in the science community. And I think the frustrating part for me is that the social interaction I get is not intriguing. We have cubicles, and we have offices, and we have buildings, and we come together only at workshops and conferences, and we never really benefit from the reaction, from the conversation we have with each other. And this Harvard Business Review was awesome because people had brilliant ideas I had never considered, and I was able to go back and improve my project because of what I learned from there. So it's just a fascinating way to learn. I talked about Innocentive. Innocentive is fascinating. It's an open innovation company, and what they do is they incentivize solving research and development problems. Who in here has heard of Innocentive before? One person. You guys should really check out their website. In 2005, they had 34 seekers. These are companies like General Motors, who has a really big problem to solve. They can't do it internally. They don't want to hire a consulting company or engineering firm to come in and solve it. What they do is they put up a cash prize, like $10,000, to solve this problem. Innocentive puts it online. It's like the X Prize Foundation, only online. And they put this online, and they've had over 58 problems solved and over 120,000 participants working on these problems. And they've actually, to date, and this was actually outdated, this was like 2 years ago, have awarded $3 million of prizes for things that have been solved. And the prizes range on this website actually from $100,000 to $1 million today. It's really, really fascinating. Space Life Sciences at JSC, and I'm using them because that's where I work and the examples I have, I know that we're talking to them about potentially, we heard before about the human research program and all the risks that we have to burn down before we go back to the moon. There's a lot of unknowns we don't know about. We need to solve those things. How do we do that? We only have so much money, limited capability. We've looked at prize incentive structures. We have the Centennial Challenges, which works really well, but is there a better way to do it? So we've looked at Innocentive. And this is one thing, if you have a problem that you can't solve and you have maybe some discretionary funds at the end of the year, you got to burn it really quick before someone takes it back, this might be something good to look into. Threadless.com. I love this example. My boss hates it. He sees no application, but I'm using it anyway. I'm an artist. I like this stuff. Threadless.com, these guys in 2000, Jack Nickel and Jacob Dehart from Chicago, had a business plan competition, and they had $1,000 seed money, and they started this internet t-shirt company. And who would have thought that someone could have innovated around t-shirt design? You think about it, you're like, okay, I know the shady guy in the trailer who does screen printing, and I'm not sure where the money goes. These guys really turned around the business plan, and they essentially built a website that was user-friendly and easy to use. And they put it out there, and they said, you design the t-shirts, we will pay you a cash prize, $2,000 in cash, really not that much money, to design a t-shirt, and then you get a percentage of the revenues. It's really, really interesting. They get $500 for every reprint that they do. It's really, really interesting website. And so you can go on here now. They have some great space t-shirts, by the way, if you get tired of the ones at the NASA Visitor Center. They have some really, really good t-shirts on here. And the greatest thing about this, if you talk to one of the people, there's people who have tried to win a t-shirt competition 100 times, and they never have. And what you say, why do you keep doing it? And they say, well, A, I'd like some money because I'm unemployed. But B, it's people give me feedback, and I become better at my designs because I'm getting this feedback. And eventually I will win because I'll become good enough. And they're competing at a higher and higher level than they would ever do if they just had one t-shirt company with 10 designers in-house. They're really, really innovating, and they've turned around the idea. And the whole thing is called open innovation. So today, we're going to talk about how to apply that shift at NASA. We call it participatory exploration. here's a quote someone said, this is something I hear all the time. People say, I would love to be involved with space exploration. I met some guy when I was at ISU who was in South Africa, and he did his PhD in spacesuit design. Being a spacesuit guy, understanding the spacesuit a bit, I started questioning him to see what he really knew. He was really brilliant. He had some really good ideas, but because of ITAR and because of we can't hire foreigners and we have no way for him to participate, there was nothing he could do, and no one would listen to him. And now he's working, some can factory. What about him? He has some really good ideas that could help us push the envelope, help us get rid of all the hard bearings that we have that, when we impact in the Orion vehicle could really cause some major damage. Is there a better way to design a spacesuit than we're currently thinking of? So participatory exploration in general provides a mechanism for the public to collaborate with NASA. Although I don't want to just frame it with the public. This is how it was defined when I found it. Think about your employees. Think about the people that work for you. I've worked in some really boring jobs at NASA. It's part of my career. I had to. Some things I didn't really enjoy. I did it because it was a stepping stone to something else. There are times when I may be able to apply something I'm learning in one area to something in another area. And I've done it before. I've just called people up and said, hey, have you thought about this? And we do it all the time at NASA, but we don't incentivize it. We don't encourage our employees to do it. In fact, I would argue that sometimes we discourage it. And we kind of build up silos and stovepipes, and we say, you are too busy. Don't go over there and talk to them. They'll take care of their job. That's what their job is. Your job is to do this. And we really, really stifle innovation in our own community environment when we do that. So, fortunately, Congress has passed a law, HR 6063, Section 407. Look it up on NASA Watch or Space Riff if you want to. Essentially says, moving forward, I think this was just passed recently, we have to develop a plan, this is in terms of constellation, I believe, that identifies opportunities to leverage technology in NASA's constellation system that delivers a rich multimedia experience to the public and that facilitate participation by the public, the private sector, non-governmental organizations, and international partners. Essentially, that's a fancy way of saying, let other people be involved. And so what I want to focus on is the facilitate participation, because I think that sometimes this is really taken out of context. We say, oh, that whole participatory exploration stuff, that's really great. I'm really busy, got to run to a meeting. Talk to the education folks about that. I'll get back to you. That's not what we're talking about here. Yeah, it has an educational aspect. It's a byproduct. Like spin-offs are a byproduct of what we do at NASA. We don't do the things we do at NASA because we want to develop a spin-off. Participatory exploration is the same way. The real intent of this is to figure out new ways to innovate, to allow the public to participate, to build an infrastructure for distributed innovation. So again, it's more than just outreach. It's anyone can participate. Scientists, engineers, researchers, average employees, Joe Q public, people we don't even know today. So let's talk about user contribution systems for a second. So think of participatory exploration as a user contribution system. Think of it as how can you take your project, which you have $20 million to develop this thing, you have 2 years to do it, maybe that's unrealistic, but you have a lot of things to do really quickly and you can't get to all of them. And there's some things you'd really like to do and that would really enhance the project if you could open them up, but you just don't have time for it now. So think about taking those things that are really high priority but not high enough to get your time and opening those up to a whole bunch of people who may be interested. So the business trend is that industry is doing this. So every day millions of people are making voluntary contributions around the world using these infrastructures. And what we're finding online, well not even online, I would say it's not even online, is that there's a lot of companies who are using the online world to really better develop their business model and in some cases revolutionizing their core business. So, I mean, if you think about eBay, that's how that works. You have an online store essentially with no inventory. The participants supply the inventory. That's a completely different way of thinking about how to do business. Think about Wikipedia. And I know we're a bunch of scientists and engineers and we don't like to quote Wikipedia even though sometimes it's right. Sometimes it's not right. But the fact of the matter is there's actually been a study or two that say that Wikipedia is just as accurate as the Encyclopedia Britannica was in its day. So Wikipedia essentially overturned a 230-year-old business model that Encyclopedia Britannica had and opened it up for virtually nothing other than some zeros and ones, electronic bits and bytes. So the strategy formation, if you wanted to do this, what would you do? The goal is to build a platform that really mobilizes a critical mass of participants. Our responsibility as NASA, which we should be doing this anyway, is to identify upfront what the opportunities are for what we need to plan our project, and then what opportunities are there for open innovation and participation. And then think about the platform. How do we do the platform? And this is a complicated question, and I know a lot of people have been thinking about this at NASA, so I'm just going to offer some tips and thoughts on that later on. And let's see here. Oh, some questions to ask yourself when you're building an open innovation platform to know how you're successful is, if you're asking yourself, first of all, is this scalable? Can I get the 5 people in my group to use it, and then get 50 people to use it, and then get 2,000 people to use it, and still have it work? That's something to ask yourself. Can the functionality evolve? If you think about Facebook.com with the widgets, they've really opened up a whole new world, because people all over the world can build things that are useful to them and then put them out there for the community to use. So the platform is where we want to give some thought to. And in general, this is often internet-based recently, but I would argue that there's a lot of things we can do at NASA that aren't internet-based. Are you guys familiar with Colab? Has everyone heard the Colab? So this is an Ames research effort which was funded last year by IPP, which I think this year it's not funded, which I think is perfect, because funding it really, we try to fit it into a organizational structure and it kills it. But what Ames Research Center and Colab has done is they've opened up to the brilliant community that they have up there in Silicon Valley, and they have these open houses essentially. They go downtown and they say, hey, here's some things we're thinking about. What do you think about? And you remember that picture at the very beginning with all those people working? They have these huge rooms, Yahoo Brickhouse for one example, where people come together to think about great, grandiose problems. If you meet anyone in Silicon Valley, everybody has a business idea there. And so there's a lot of stuff to learn. And so consider these popular websites: Wikipedia, YouTube, Facebook. There's other ones like Craigslist, MySpace. They've joined other sites such as Amazon, eBay, Google. And at first glance, these don't necessarily have a lot in common. They're targeting unrelated areas of the human endeavor, cataloging information, video entertainment, social interaction, classified advertising, retail shopping, and internet search. Some of the sites charge users. Some of them are free. One's nonprofit. Another is one of the highest profit margin companies in public corporations. But despite their differences, all of these are winning sites that rely on, or are in themselves, user contribution systems, if you really think about it. And another good example that I use all the time is ePinion. When I go traveling, I check there. I don't call my travel agent. I go online to find out where to go. So the participants can contribute in an active way. They can aggregate content like Wikipedia. They know they're doing it. They can aggregate stuff for sale like eBay, or they can do it in a passive way. Some of the best ones are the ones that they just think they're having fun. And I like to use the Army of One's website, army.com. You go online there, they're essentially training you to be in the Army. And the kids are thinking that they're playing a video game. It's brilliant by the Army. How could we take advantage of that? So I was thinking a little bit about this, and a lot of pushback I get on this idea is that, all right, Nick, good idea. I just don't have time to go through a million ideas that are just surface level. We know what we're doing here. We don't need that. Well, yes. So it's just think about media. They hook you with a one-line sentence, and then you read a paragraph. And if you're really interested, you read the whole article. Same thing here. There may be some systems that we develop that just hook them. And that might be the education part, right? But maybe there's some documents that we need to develop, or some risks that we need to go through. Maybe we've developed a list of 110 human health risks for going back to the moon, but have we really asked everybody who's a subject matter expert if those are the right risks, if we're concentrating in the right area? I'd argue that we're not, and that if we opened it up, we might find something else with minimal effort, really. And then you get the subject matter experts. We work a lot with NSBRI and USRA at Johnson Space Center. These guys are networks of experts around the world, and even them, my project, we have a lot of issues that we need to solve, a lot of health risks. And so we do our best in the mechanisms that we have in our portfolio of business, and we open it up and we say, how can we better solve this? We'll give you some money in an SBIR to solve this. But we are targeting such a small audience, and most of them have formal relationships somehow with someone in the space industry. What about all those people? For example, when I worked at General Motors, my friend Randy Rodriguez, the guy is brilliant. He actually went to the Art Design Center right down the road. He didn't even know NASA existed when I worked at General Motors with him. He was all about cars and motorcycles. I talked to him about space back then. Turns out he went on to work for Nissan. He just designed the new Nissan Z, what's it called? The Z, I can't remember what, the nice little sports car that they have? Thank you. He just designed the new 350Z, which is coming out. It looks really, really sweet. I've seen undercover pictures. After he did that, he was like, you know what? This space stuff sounds kind of interesting. He contacted someone from Scaled Composites. This team of people left Scaled Composites with Randy and designed this really, really sweet airplane. And now they're trying to get into the space industry as well. So you never know where the talent's going to come from. So benefits to NASA. We can talk about this all day long, and I won't bore you to death, but enhanced communication, allowing people to be involved in what we do is not just a one-way press release thing. We really need a two-way communication system. And allowing them to participate will help create an avenue of people that, A, will contribute to our mission, but B, will really support us when it comes to Congress and to public perception. And yes, people are very, generally, supportive of NASA in general because, A, they may not know what we're doing, and B, they just think it's great because as a child they want to be an astronaut. But beyond that surface level, they don't know much about what we're doing. If you give them an opportunity to really participate, they will start writing their congressmen. They will start standing up and voting for NASA. Multiple perspectives to solve a problem. One of the innovation dilemmas that NASA has that I've heard a lot of people talk about, especially at JSC in our Innovation and Inclusion Council, is the idea that we do not have multiple perspectives to solve a problem. We tend to promote from within, hire people that we're comfortable with. And although that's nice and we can work well together, what really, really solves a problem well is when you have multiple perspectives. You bring the engineering student together with the marketing major, with the crazy scientist who you never know what he's really doing. And you bring them together to solve a problem. It's the Skunk Works type of model, and it's really an effective model. Education and public outreach, this is pretty obvious. Employee support. Best Buy has a website called Blue Shirt Nation. All of their employees use it to essentially share information about how to do their job better. And so if you have a question at Best Buy, you go to this website called Blue Shirt Nation. This would be a brilliant idea for NASA because there's a lot of people in the EVA world, which I work in, at Glenn, at Ames, all over the center, all over the agency, that there's limited travel budgets. We can't go everywhere. I just don't interact with these people. I don't even know they exist. Yet I'm trying to aggregate a lot of the EVA knowledge for going back to the moon. So how do we do that effectively? Capital resources. Think about Skype radio. Am I okay on time?
Wrap it up.
Okay. Think about Skype radio. If they're a company that really leverages the PC and all the free resources and unused capability on a PC to build a company that essentially works off of people's PCs for nothing. So anyway, I'll just fly through these. So there's a lot. I have case studies. So what I'm going to do, like I always do, which I'll probably regret down the line, but I'll put these online and you can go back. And I actually have backup slides because I knew you guys would maybe have some questions about this. And I've tried to answer some common questions in the back. But so say you're interested in participatory exploration. Like, how would you actually think about doing this in your organization? There's a lot of questions about it. Are we missing opportunities? How do we really increase participation? And the challenge for us, like I said, is twofold: to identify opportunities and then to really build this open innovation platform to allow people to participate. So number one, self-evaluation. First thing you need to do is sit back and say, what do I need to solve? And really clearly identify that, and then sit down with your target audience and say, is this interesting to you? Because if you think it's interesting to them and it's not, they're not going to do anything for you, and that's the biggest mistake I see people making. Number two, utilize your existing resources. You have a lot of brilliant people in-house that would probably benefit from some sort of platform like this. Ask them what they need, use it inside, and then scale it up. Three, leverage your internal talent. 4, nurture small experiments. So I've seen so many times that this gets killed because someone says, yes, great idea. Come back to me with a complete project plan detailing exactly what you're going to do, exactly how much money you need, how many resources you need. No one ever gets off the ground. Start it as a small experiment and let people work on it. Prototype. This is the basic, build it and they will come. Vote early. Listen to your community. If you build one of these infrastructures, put it out there and let people use it, and then listen to the feedback they give you. If they say it's not working, change it so it does work. Number 7, it's okay to fail. I see a lot of times that this is a really good idea inside NASA, but we kill it because it fails once and we think, oh, it just didn't work. We're never trying it again. It's probably going to fail the first time. Let it fail. Organizational buy-in. Essentially, one good way to do this is connect communities, because I bet you if you build it inside your own organization, there's a lot of other people who would really utilize this. And don't think that if you work in operations, you just need to talk to other operations folks. Go and talk to the scientists. Go talk to the researchers. Finally, Collab is a resource that you have if you just don't have anyone else to talk to. There's a lot of folks. You can go online. You can search for Collab. There's some folks who are really thinking about this and have a lot of really good ideas. I'm actually just kind of a bystander of Collab. I got involved peripherally because I thought it was a great idea. There's a lot of people who know a lot more about this than I do, and I definitely encourage you to talk to them. So with that being said, thank you very much.